Here's an example of a reference architecture that we can make for customers, where we can see there's actually a lot of different DevOps building blocks, so to call it. And in this example, those blocks are residing actually on 2 different platforms. It can be more than that, but for the sake of simplicity, we keep it for 2 different platforms. So there is the ServiceNow platform with a couple of components, which are very important. And then there is the Azure platform with a couple of different components. And there's a small overlap as well. So let's take it from the start. Companies define their strategies, their goals. They have demands coming in from the business, ideas coming in, and they can use portfolio management to manage that funnel of incoming demand and align that with their company strategies. Now, from these demands and projects, you can start defining epics, so high-level requirements evolving around value to be delivered. Those can be captured in those epics, and then those epics can be handed off to the different teams that could be delivering those epics. And for example, if there is a more business-oriented team, they could be working in ServiceNow Agile module and refine the epics into stories from there. They plan it in sprints, and they can get input from other processes as well in the unified backlog. However, if there is a team more development oriented and the entire stack of tools is already in Azure DevOps, they can also just take their own agile tool, being Azure Boards, for example, where they receive those epics, and as they refine that into stories, those stories are also being fed back to ServiceNow, allowing on the portfolio management part to see actually the real-time status of what is going on in the different teams, and also being able to align that and keep control from a higher level to actually know what is going on. Now, this could very well be Jira or any other backlog management tool. The point is that there can be multiple tools. We consolidate that information back in ServiceNow, where you have the single pane of glass that Bramley referred to, that allows you to see everything which is going on. And also this point of the unified backlog Bramley mentioned allows you to actually take in incidents or change tasks or any other type of task, in fact, that is in ServiceNow, specify criteria and get that single overview of what is going on for your product, whether it's operational or development type of work, and have that single view of whatever is going on and the real-time status of that. That allows you to prioritize really on what is most important at this moment in time to deliver, to add the most value. Then from DevOps perspective, the Azure DevOps perspective, you will start building your software. You start coding, you have those commits, and then you'll trigger your pipeline, which will entail a lot of build steps, maybe some tests. And at some point, you want to deploy that. And that's the moment when you can check in back with ServiceNow to see if it's okay to approve this change. And with all the information that ServiceNow has been collecting about the stories and the epics and the commits that are coming in, and actually the build and the test results maybe, there is a lot of information to make that assessment in a proper way and automate that to the end. So then when the change is approved, the deployment is done, and all of that information is, of course, also registered and stored in your CMDB. And the CMDB is important. So when you have 1 or 2 teams, you can manage it from your Agile and your products, that's all fine. But when you want to scale it up to an enterprise level, you need to have that service structure in place to be able to scale that and actually get that high level overview of the entire organization. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we start off with making that end-to-end vision very concrete to see this is the picture we are headed for. From then on, we can break it up into bite-sized steps. As Bramley said, the first step would be a matter of weeks, where we implement the first thing and show the value to the organization. And then with every success, we take a new bite out of the elephant and ensure that we have a constant mode of delivering value and showing that success. So then it's time for the demo. So what I will show you briefly is the situation where there might be a team which has an idea. It will create an epic from that in ServiceNow, which will magically show up in Azure Boards. In Azure Boards, that epic can be refined into stories, which will be magically updated in ServiceNow. And when the code changes are made and is being committed, all that information is tracked back in ServiceNow. And when we get to the test and the build steps of the pipeline, the progress of that can be seen in ServiceNow. And at the point where the change is requested, ServiceNow will automatically assess that change and approve it if possible. And then the deployment will be automatically made and the value is delivered. So now it is time for the demo. So what we'll start off is creating this epic from a business perspective. So there's many ways to do that in ServiceNow. You could use portfolio management. You could use the Scaled Agile Framework application. Most recently, there's also a possibility to add it is Scrum programs. So you can have your programs where you can define your epics. So let's see, we're in the Armstrong Flying Cars product website program. So let's create an epic. So it is about a company that produces flying cars and wants to sell it, and they have a website. So let's say we want to have a customer support page. By assigning it to the right group, ServiceNow will know to which location to send it to actually work on that. So in this case, we're going to select the product website team, that will actually end up in Azure DevOps as well. So as I'm saving this epic, I can also already, for example, add a story to add a, let's say, a contact details page. And that's a minimum viable product. Customers will know how to contact you without having to set up complex things. And again, over here, we want to assign it to that group. So if we submit that, we can see over here that we have this new epic. And if we go to the team level page in ServiceNow, where we have the product website team, we can actually see that there's already a new story which showed up in the contact details page. And if the team would be working in ServiceNow, they could use the sprint planning functionality to actually say, well, this new one, I think it's very important, so I want to plan it actually in the current sprint already. And then from there on, you can go to the sprint tracking, where you can actually monitor the progress of your sprint. Now, if we go to Azure DevOps, and we select the product website team, we can see that the story we just created, the contact details page, is already here. And it is, in fact, related to the customer support page epic, which was created 2 minutes ago. So that checks about that. Okay, so let's pick up a story. Let's say I want maybe a first priority. It's already in doing. It's already assigned to me. Is actually to be able to order a car online. So for the reference, I also put the ServiceNow story number in there. And I'm going to pick up this story. So for this, I'm going to the repositories and I'm going to make my file change. I have a nice shortcut to that one. So I need to know if I'm going to make it available for customers to actually order their car. I need to change this property to true. I just put in the story for reference and make buy now option available. So I'm committing this change to the code. I'm doing it nicely in the development branch, and to be able to move that to the environments, I need to merge that branch into the master branch, which will trigger the run of the pipeline. So actually, if we now go to pipelines, we can see that I just triggered the run of the pipeline. So what this pipeline will do is first do some code checking and validating that there is no problems in my code. Then there is a build step which will produce the package, after which it will be published to UAT, and after that published to production. Now, meanwhile, we can actually maybe have a look on what the website looks like today. So here we have our test environment. You can see there's a very nice first model of our flying car over here. And at this moment, it's not possible to order yet, but you can subscribe for updates. Now, if we look at the pipeline, we can see that the first stage is already finished, and it's now actually doing a lot of technical stuff to build the package that we will need to deploy in a minute. Now, as promised, this is also a progress we can actually track in ServiceNow. So we can see the pipeline history. We can see that the first step is actually completed successfully, and we can see there is a related work item that the customer wants to be able to order a car online. So all of this information is already there. Now, what we see over here is a check, and this will become a clickable button later to show the change request associated before the move can be done to a UAT environment. So if we go back in history, we can see over here that this pipeline actually stopped. It never went through. So we can have a look on that change. So why did that change not go through, in fact? And what we can see, it got stuck in the authorize step. We can see that the approval was requested, but it wasn't yet approved. So if we have a look in the notes, we can see that although the technical approvals were okay, we see that the change could not be automatically approved since there were still open work items. So over here, we can indeed see, if we scroll to the bottom, that related to this change, and there's a couple of code commits, and there is in fact work items related. So apparently the API keys were still being set up, and the item is still work in progress. So we have set up one of these rules that if there's still open work items, or if there are work items related to your commit which have other dependencies which are still open, then we cannot automatically approve it. And of course, there's a lot of different rules you can set up here for your automated change management, and for every organization that's a little bit different. But we are in fact working on a library with certain rules that might make a lot of sense to your organization, and that we can implement them for you. So meanwhile, I think I've talked long enough for the build process to finish, indeed. And what we can now see in the publish to UAT step, we are now waiting for the ServiceNow change acceleration bit. So let's see those incoming changes. We can see, in fact, there is a new change created indeed, and it's in state requested. So if I open the change, I can see over here, it's the same reason that the change was not approved, because there are still open work items. So well, for now, let's manually approve this change. But also, let's close this work item, in fact, so that when we do the deployment in production in a minute, the item will be closed, so it can automatically approve. So it was this one, in fact, so I can close it. And what we will see is that this work item still says work in progress here, But if I open the story behind that, we should see that any minute now, yes, it jumps to complete because I marked it complete in Azure DevOps. So what we can now see, if we go back to the pipeline, is that probably the deployment of the UAT is still in progress. It's actually finishing, so that means if we now refresh this test page, this is the test environment, we can actually see we now have a nice Buy Now button. Whereas if we go to the production environment, we still have the subscribe button. So in a minute, when it checks in for another change request, we will see that it will be approved automatically for the production environment. So it already happened because the work items were all closed, so it could automatically approve the change. And we also have that as a comment. There are no open work items. And we can see in the pipeline that the final deployment to the production environment is in fact ongoing now. And as that will complete, and I refresh the production page in a few minutes, we will see that it is a feature implemented in production, ready to use, value delivered. There we go. All right, so that's it for the demo now. I hope you liked it. There's of course a lot more to it. I tried to rush it up a bit so that we have some time for questions as well. But if you want to know more details, we're happy to give you a more detailed demo with more detailed use cases. Just reach out to us.
Yeah, I think just maybe to highlight one thing, Guus, from that demo. I think the power here, if you look at what ServiceNow is doing, in fact, it's collecting all the data from all the, let's say, sources. So if you now go into those changes, you basically see all that related data pop up there. And that will make it really easy to show to your auditors that you are fully in control and that you're not just tracking changes if you're moving stuff to production, but you're really tracking changes when stuff moves throughout, let's say, the entire development streets. So you're really, let's say, improving control, you're improving auditability, but it's all automated, and therefore you're not adding waste or administrative load. So it's really a very nice demonstration of that capability, I think.
Yeah, just on that to add, with that data, you are able to measure the velocity at which the team is delivering the solution to production. You're also able to measure the culture, which is very important because you can start seeing if people are adopting the new ways of working. So yeah, that's important.
Yeah. No, indeed, yes. So all this information is, of course, gathered up in different dashboards that show the velocity, the commits, but also the errors that go wrong, and also gathering test data. There was already some possibility, but those are also really things that are still being added to this application. And maybe even the best thing about this that I forgot to mention, all of this is out of the box. They are standard components. It's a matter of activating them and configuring them with the right logic, and then it just works. So it's not a fully customized setup for that part. So very important part. All right, so indeed, this brings us to the key takeaway. So by indeed automating this change, we can really find the sweet spot between agility and control, just as Elmer indeed just mentioned. Then also having this end-to-end vision of a practical vision. What should it look like? What we're heading to is essential to lay out that road towards success. And finally, the point I just made, it can actually be very easy to integrate tools as long as they are modern cloud-based tools that use modern ways of integrating.